So I'd like to start things off with a reading. It's actually the text from a meme that I found on Facebook the other day, and it really struck me considering the subject matter that we're going to be discussing tonight. And it goes a little something like this: Men cry, men break down, men suffer with eating disorders, men have suicidal thoughts and die by suicide. Men suffer with mental illness. It is not unmanly to struggle. We need to be encouraging men to speak out and not let them suffer in silence. So, a couple months ago, after completing some home improvement projects, my back and my hamstrings started to feel a little bit stiff, but this is to be expected. I decided to treat myself to a half hour with a licensed massage therapist to try to work out some of the kinks. I had been a runner in a past life, and I hadn't been the best at pre or post stretching. In fact, to be quite honest, I hadn't taken very good care of my body for the first 30 years or so of my life. And I kind of figured this is my body giving me a little bit of payback for that. So for the next day or so after the massage, I did feel a little bit better. Then things started to get progressively worse. A few days after that, the pain in the back of my leg, whenever standing or trying to walk, was pretty unbearable. After a trip to the emergency room and then to a sports orthopedic specialist, it was established that I had a herniated lumbar disc. So yeah, it was my body giving me some payback, and it was payback for slouching in a desk chair and all around bad posture for most of my life. So I was prescribed a regimen of very light physical therapy and posture corrections, ice packs and ibuprofen, and thus began my long and weary road to recovery. I soon found a significant part of that healing process for me was an examination of all the parts of me that were hurting, not just the physical parts. And one of the parts that came to the forefront pretty quickly was my pride. All of a sudden, my body wasn't functioning the way I wanted it to. I was unable to help around the house. I was barely even able to put my socks on in the morning. Even though I knew that chances were extremely good that I would make a full recovery, I was acting like someone who had forever lost a vital part of my humanity. This last was articulated and confirmed by my loving and enduring spouse when she proclaimed, "You are not being a good patient." Now, to be clear, that is exactly what she said. But what I heard was, "Stop being such a baby. Be a man, for crying out loud." Again, I need to reiterate that last part were the voices that stemmed from my personal history that helped me to understand what it means to be a man, not the voice of my wife. And it was there that I found the source of a good bit of my emotional suffering, about why my pride was bruised. And under closer examination, I came up with a lot of ideas that I had been taught about pride through the lens of masculinity, about what it means to be a real man. Real men, and yeah, if you hate air quotes, there's going to be a few of them throughout this, so I do apologize. Real men don't show their pain. Real men don't ask for help. And real men just suck it up, no matter how much it hurts. That's pretty much all of the air quotes that I'm going to do, so you're through the worst of it. So all of these messages, all these and other messages about real men that young people are internalizing every day. A message that was underlined, put in bold type, and given a big fat exclamation point by a customer of mine at Animal Friends. A man who was telling me about his canine companion of many years needing to be euthanized, and who abruptly went into bro crying mode. For those of you not familiar, I'll demonstrate. Nope, not gonna do it. Not gonna cry. Not gonna let anybody see me cry. Nope. Okay, we're good. Yeah. So, what is the source of the bro cry? It's just one of many enduring masculine stereotypes. Stereotypes like that it's not all right for boys to cry, that it's not okay to try to stop a friend from catcalling or harassing a woman, that it's absolutely okay to tear someone else down in order to build up your own self-esteem. That it's okay, in fact, it's expected to lie about a fellow man's sexual misconduct. Messages that were and still are taught to our young people every single day. Words that bang around in their heads and in their hearts all of their lives until such time that they pass them on to other young people, thereby completing the cycle of hurt people, hurt people. So I want to be totally clear. I'm not trying to pull down the idea of pride itself. There are all kinds of problematic words that have become tied to systems of oppression like sexism and homophobia, racism, classism, ableism. And as is the case with the majority of those words, there is nothing wrong with the root concept of being proud. Doing a new or scary or difficult thing is awesome, and you have every right to look at that thing that you did and feel good about it. The danger in the word pride is the stories that we've told ourselves and that have been passed down to the next generation about why and how we should be proud. The pride of being a superior race. The pride of being born into a higher, more privileged tax bracket. The pride of what some people perceive as better physical or mental abilities than others. When we are proud at the expense of another, we are building a skyscraper on flimsy and fragile foundations. We have chipped away at the humanity of another, and in so doing, weakened our own humanity. One doesn't have to look too far on the internet to find conversations about appropriate language and sensitivity. At any given time, we are merely a stone's throw from someone who, upon hearing about the Me Too movement, will comment, "Oh, I just think they need to grow a thicker skin." When hearing discussions about pulling songs from the airwaves because they can trigger traumatic reactions in some people, there are folks that will say that we're just a society filled with whiners. It's just a song. You have to take it in the context of the time it was written. After all, sticks and stones and blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, words can and do cause damage. Given the right environment, words can cause immense and often irreparable harm. When trying to discuss this concept, I'm often met with, "I think we've become way too politically correct for our own good." And to that I answer, if someone is telling us that a word is hurtful to them, either to them individually or to the group they belong, it was probably never appropriate to use. Really, you've been getting a pass on this all along. So no, words don't technically break bones, but they can cause lasting damage. Words like normal and superior, queer, Washington Redskins and Cleveland Indians. Words can cause great suffering. They can alienate and they can marginalize. They may not break bones, but they can and do break spirits. So when I talk to people about the need to be mindful of our words, one of the criticisms that I hear most often revolves around the perceived need for perfection. Speaking of needs for perfection, what I hear is, "You can't please everyone. It takes too much effort to try to avoid not offending anyone." When in truth, that's not the expectation. Unless, of course, your audience consists of only those that agree with you, there's simply no way to not push someone's buttons. And for the most part, excuse me, my alarm's going off. Speaking of perfection, perfection's so highly overrated. Where was I? So you're never not going to be able to push somebody's buttons. And for the most part, the people asking you to stop saying hurtful things know this. To further complicate the issue, what is appropriate changes every day. The landscape and the language of human rights is constantly evolving. The people you're trying not to offend often don't know every single nook and cranny of what's considered offensive to their own group. That ground is filled with all kinds of landmines and tiger traps. And you can spend a lot of time and energy trying to avoid all of those traps. When it comes to sensitive words and emotional issues, no matter how hard you try, you are going to fail. And surprise, that's a good thing. In general, the concept of failing has been tainted and needs to be taken back. It needs to be reclaimed. Social scientist Brene Brown, in her book Rising Strong, which I will link to on our page. You have no idea how long I've been wanting to say that. We'll link to that book somewhere on our page later. Anywho, sociologist Brene Brown talks in great depth about the value in embracing the fact that we will fail. And it's in the failing and learning the lessons within those failures and then rising strong again. It's in all of that process that we grow. So I tried learning how to inline skate when I was 32, and I was terrified. I was terrified of falling and of all the things that I had wrapped up in my head about what it means to fall, physically and mentally. And because of that, I never pushed off into the great inline unknown. The fear of failure closed me off from an entire world of experiences. So many of us have been taught that failure is akin to weakness, that it points to some frailty within us, that if we fail, then we are failures, that if we are sometimes messy, then we are a mess. I say to you, you are going to fail eventually. So why not fail quickly and get it out of the way? If I'm worried about offending someone, I use whatever word I was planning on using. And when someone calls me on it and tells me, hey, that's hurtful, I listen, I apologize, and then I change and grow. The key for me is to be genuine in my intent to do no harm. That intent will shine through to the truth of the matter far better than any ill-fated attempt at covering all of the bases. And then we move on to the next magnificent and spectacular faceplant. Now, don't get me wrong, winning is great. But what was the cost of your victory? Was it at the expense of someone else's dignity? Someone else's basic human rights? Did it cost you a little bit of your own integrity, your own spirit? Did you steal a little bit from your own inner reserve of truth and kindness in order to win that thing that you just had to have? So yeah, pride and failure, appropriate and able, proper and sensitive, all of these and so many other words and concepts have been twisted and maligned. Through the need for some to oppress and hold power over others, these words, these concepts have taken on meanings that are so far from their original intent. They're built on a bedrock of lies and misperceptions, flimsy foundations. But despite the frail and fragile nature of their origins, these concepts have become long-lasting bedrocks upon which institutionalized oppression has prospered and flourished. Words can be weapons. They can chop and bludgeon, and sometimes, given the right set of circumstances, words can even kill. But they can also be used to create positive change, the change that we as Unitarian Universalists strive to bring about, the change we strive to be. Words like compassion and joy, integrity and humanity, love and justice and loss, and yes, even failure. If we provide the right environment, the right conditions, just like sowing seeds, we can start to build that just and loving world. So I thank you for being here with me. And before we leave, I give you these words. Go out. Start to create that world. a world where we don't actually need a thick skin. And we don't need it because folks are just kind to one another. It's a world where we are kind to ourselves. Be safe, be blessed, in prayer and in peace and in power. Rock on.